Welcome in to Cut the Killer Carbs right here on AM 580 with Dr. Justin Anderson, Metabolic Coaching. Check out the website, metabolic-coaching.net. Of course, their number, 448-0322. That's 448-0322. And check out our Facebook, Cut the Killer Carbs. You can follow us there on Facebook, and we'll be happy to give you some helpful tips and strategies to accomplish your health and weight loss goals.
I'll say one of the big things, excuse me, one of the big things about the Facebook page is that on the Facebook page there are like 200 low-carb recipes. They're on the Facebook page. And I would like to give a special shout-out to Stacy Darville. She has been helping with the Facebook page, putting up some new recipes, and so there are new recipes going up all the time. She's doing a fabulous job. The Facebook page is looking great, and so if you don't know what to cook low carb, you don't know how to cook low carb, just go to the Facebook page. You can click on photos, and then there's an album under photos that's just called low carb recipes, and it's got 200 photos. Go there.
Low carb recipes. Okay. Well, one of the things I want to ask you about, and I know you want to get into medication, so maybe we'll do that first. But at some point in today's show, I've got to ask you about this whole craze about the Whole 30 diet plan, Whole 30-day diet plan. After I read it, I thought, this is just Dr. Anderson on 365. There's no difference in what they're talking about there. It's a very low-carb, high-fat diet plan, but everybody's that's doing the Whole 30-day diet plan thinking it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's what we talk about every Tuesday here on the show, but let's wait for that, and then, or do you want to get into it now and talk about medications?
Let's do it now.
Want to do Whole 30 day now?
Because the thing is that there are about 50 different versions of a low carbohydrate diet.
Yes.
And the fact is that doing a low carbohydrate diet makes people feel better. It helps them lose weight. It improves their blood pressure. It improves their blood sugar. It does all of those things, and the low carbohydrate diet works. And so one of them is the Whole 30. And so, but there are different variations. Like one will define a low carbohydrate diet as less than 50 grams of net carbs, or one will say it's less than 20 grams of net carbs, or one will say a low carbohydrate diet is you don't eat bread and potatoes. You know, so there are different ways to kind of look at it. But these are the very simple rules from the Whole 30. This is Whole 30 program rules. Eat moderate portions of meat, seafood, and eggs. So number one, eat meat, seafood, and eggs. Got it. Eat lots of vegetables. That's your green leafy vegetables, your low glycemic vegetables. You can eat some fruit, and I would agree with that. I say very moderate portions of fruit. If you're going to have fruit, stick with the berries. The berries are the lowest glycemic of the fruit. And eat plenty of natural fats. And plenty of natural fats along with lots of low-carb vegetables means you're on a low-carbohydrate, high-fat diet. And eat herbs, spices, and seasonings. Eat foods with very few ingredients. So you're trying to avoid the processed foods, the things that are in the middle of the grocery store, boxed this and boxed that. You're eating whole foods. You know, that's the idea of the Whole 30. Eat foods with pronounceable ingredients, or better yet, no ingredients listed at all, because they're whole and unprocessed. And the Whole 30, it's a great start for people, you know, because people want to know, they want to feel better, they want to know, is this going to work? And they can do the diet for 30 days and see a difference in their energy levels, see a difference in their weight. They lose a little bit of weight, they have increased energy, they feel better. And so, you know, the premise of the Whole 30 is do it for 30 days, commit for 30 days, and then they hope you're going to commit and continue going after that. The way I do the metabolic coaching program is a 3-month program. And so I guess, you know, maybe you could call it the Whole 90. But the idea is that you start, it takes somewhere between 3 weeks to 3 months to really change your habits and change your thought processes and change your subconscious beliefs about food. And so what I do is we do a 3-month program, and during that 3 months in metabolic coaching, I support you with emails that have additional information. We do follow-ups every week. You can come to follow-ups. It's like a support group. And I give you a CD that has audio tracks on it. Their Subconscious Reprogramming Audio Tracks. They work kind of like hypnosis, and you're supposed to listen to those for 3 weeks to 3 months, because it takes that long to really kind of change your subconscious beliefs about food. So I think the Whole30 is great. I think the Atkins diet is great. I think you can do Zone, you can do South Beach, but the thing that I've found that's missing in all the diet books and all the diet programs is that they think once you do it and you feel better, you're going to keep doing it. But people don't, because people always slide back into their old habits.
Well, because like in this particular article that I read last night, there was it was on I can't remember what website it was on. It might have been on Business Insider or something like that. I can't remember.
Esquire?
But no. It was like a news site. It was talking about health-related things. That they have a health section on most of these news organizations, by the way, whether it be Fox or whatever.
And
they have health segments.
You get too confused doing that.
Well, sure, but that's why I asked you about it, because I read it last night online, and this lady on there said, "I did the 30-day whole food or the whole 30-day."
It's called the Whole30.
The Whole30 diet plan, and it was tough. But when I popped out the other side, I felt great. And she went through all the things that it had helped her as far as blood hypertension and yeah, she got
no surprise there.
Clear-headed. Stress levels went down.
That's what you need, the clear-headedness.
You know, all this kind of stuff, and I thought, okay, well that's great, but then the article doesn't say whether or not she did the whole 30-day diet plan, and then quits and goes back to complex carbohydrates. I guess that's what happens.
So the reason that people go back to eating the same way. So of all diet programs, 95% of all diet programs fail, which means that 1 year after you start the diet, most people are back to their same weight or 5 pounds heavier. 95% of people. So how do you avoid that failure rate? How do you do something long-term that's a long-term success?
Yeah.
And the answer is you have to change your subconscious beliefs about food and what's healthy and what's delicious. And so how do you do that? Well, I'll talk about how we do that. If you've ever heard the expression that we only use 10% of our brain, or we only use 2% of our brain. Well, the 10% of our brain that we use, that's the conscious mind. So you and I are sitting here talking. Your conscious mind is engaged. You're thinking about what I'm saying and what you're going to say next, and all that's conscious thought. But everything back in the back is subconscious. The much more powerful, much larger part of your brain is called the subconscious. That's the other 90%. And in the other 90% of your brain are stored all of your memories of your entire life, your preferences. I mean, when you drive, you actually drive subconsciously. It's just a program that you run. So, I mean, you can hop in the first time you ever drove a car, it was hard because you had to think about how to, put your foot on the gas. If you had a clutch and you're doing standard, it's even harder. So you're using both hands, both feet, you're back and forth. You have to know when to push the brake. So all of that's conscious thought, but then it becomes a habit. It all becomes subconscious. And so if somebody asks you, well, where do you want to go eat? The same 4 restaurants pop into your mind every single time because they just pop out of the subconscious. You're running the program. Where do I want to go eat? So what happens is consciously you decide, I'm going to do the Whole30. And your conscious mind, the 10%, the much smaller part of your mind, has to use willpower. And you willpower your way through a diet. You can do that for 2 weeks or 2 months. You can do it for a period of time, but eventually you run out of willpower because what's happening is your subconscious, the 90%, the much more powerful part of your mind is saying, yeah, but bread tastes good. Ice cream tastes good. Mama gave me bread and Mama loved me. She wasn't trying to hurt me. Mama loved me. And Mama made me grilled cheese and she bought me French fries at McDonald's when I went to the doctor, and I was
stimulates
good.
that pleasure center.
So all of that stuff is in the back of your mind, and eventually you go back to your old habits because the subconscious is so much more powerful than your conscious mind. So you need to do something totally different, and this is what's missing from any diet program I've ever run across. Any diet program, they consciously, like you read a book or you read an article or whatever, and all that's conscious thought, but they don't ever reprogram your subconscious. And so what we do in metabolic coaching is we reprogram your subconscious by giving you this set of subconscious reprogramming audio tracks. And these audio tracks, they work like guided meditations, or they work like hypnosis. They speak directly to your subconscious mind. You listen to them at night while you're in bed going to sleep. And the reason you listen to them at night in bed going to sleep is because when you're totally awake, you're in alpha brainwave state. When you're in deep, deep sleep, you're in delta brainwave state. And when you're going to sleep, passing from alpha to delta, you go through what's called theta brainwave state.
Mm-hmm.
And in theta brainwave state, you're suggestible. If you've ever seen a stage hypnotist, what a stage hypnotist does, he counts down from 10 to 1, counts down very slowly, has you
Let's do it right here on the
breathe.
show, right now. Come on, Dr. Anderson,
I've
put me
often,
to sleep.
I've often thought about that, but some people are driving.
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't want to meditate yourself
get liable,
into
someone will be like, oh, he did
into a
hypnosis
telephone
over
pole.
the air, and yeah,
But-
that's true.
So
I was thinking about falling asleep at the board, and you'd have to call Jim Stewart in here to wake me up or something.
well, he'd be asleep in his office. He's got it playing in there. Both of you guys would be passed out. I'd be here for like 3 or 4 hours doing the show.
It's awesome.
But a stage hypnotist counts down from 10 to 1 to put you into theta brainwave state. Well, you do that naturally yourself at night when you go to sleep.
That's right.
You pass right through theta brainwave state, and so you listen to those subconscious reprogramming audio tracks at night while you're in theta brainwave state, and it reprograms your subconscious to where you don't want sugar, you don't want potatoes, you don't want bread, and you get to the point to where those things aren't even tempting to you. And so what happens is now you're doing a diet that's totally different. You're not just reading a book and doing a diet. Now your conscious mind, which is the 10%, is saying, I'm going to do this low-carb diet thing and see if I can lose weight. And your subconscious has been recruited by doing the subconscious reprogramming audio track. So your subconscious has been recruited, and it says, I'm going to do this low-carb diet thing too. And so now, instead of your conscious and subconscious in conflict, instead of them fighting, they're both working toward the same goal, which is achieving a long-term, healthy change in your weight, your physical appearance, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, all that stuff.
All of
they
it.
work together. And that process takes 3 weeks to 3 months. That's why the program is 3 months long. And because I want to get everybody off to a good start to where then they can go do it on their own.
So you're a whole 90 kind of guy.
I'm a whole 90
Whole
kinda guy.
90-day diet plan.
And I'll tell you that we have some people who, after they finish their 90 days, they want to continue the small group follow-ups. They want to continue to get emails, continue to get access to me by email and text messaging, and so they'll stay subscribed for longer, sometimes up to a year, sometimes longer than that. So the whole 90, I think, is how long it takes you to make the change.
Well, there was another story that I read last night that I found fascinating, that the CDC, because it ties into this, what we're talking about, the Department of Health, they're also saying that they need to lower down the systolic and diastolic blood pressures for Americans. In other words, it's going to throw in, right now they say about 1/3 of Americans are pre-hypertensive. In other words, they have a higher rating than, say, they say
Yeah.
normal is 120 over 80. Okay, 120 over 80. But now they're saying, if you're 130, it used to be 135, but 130 is still, they're going to say pre-hypertension.
One of the big studies that came out, it's been several years ago, was they looked at lowering the blood pressure in elderly patients.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that lowering the blood pressure in elderly patients didn't help them with survival. I mean, it didn't help them live longer. And so there was a big pushback saying that, well, in elderly patients, they don't need to be on all this medication. And, maybe it doesn't increase their survival because there are side effects to all the medications, And if I were a drug company and I made blood pressure medication, I would be lobbying the CDC in Washington, D.C., and I would be doing studies to lower that blood pressure limit as low as possible. And that's what's happened with cholesterol, is that they've lowered what they consider to be normal levels of LDL cholesterol, They're trying to lower what should be normal blood pressure, and that's because if somebody's going to fund a study in the United States, I mean, if somebody's going to fund a 10-year study of 10,000 people and see what's going to happen, that sort of funding used to come from the NIH, and it used to come from the federal government. And so there are lots of big studies that were done, like the Framingham Heart Study, that will never be done again because that funding isn't there anymore. Instead, the funding comes from drug companies, and the drug company is the only one who's going to have $100 million to fund a 10-year study of 10,000 people. So the studies that you're going to see are going to be the very large studies. They're going to be drug company funded, and that's just where we are.
So you
today.
think that's where that originates from, about the idea of lowering that systolic rate? Well, and actually the dystolic rate too, because am I correct? Systolic's top, dystolic's lower.
Diastolic is the
diastolic is the bottom one, but they were saying 85 on it, 130 on the top. If you have that, which I did for a long time until I started changing my lifestyle
Get on drugs,
a lot.
man.
Well, if you
have that, you need drugs. That's the summary.
Well, the article didn't say that. It said it doesn't necessarily mean that, but it could as you go see your primary care physician. If they're saying this is the standard now, then maybe you would be looking at some beta blockers or whatever to artificially lower that blood pressure. But the article did say, with those new numbers coming out, that 1 out of every 2 adults in America would be in that pre-hypertension phase. Hypertension.
Man, that's a lot of money to be made.
That's half of U.S. adult population.
I'm in the wrong business.
That is, isn't it? It's crazy.
I'll tell you.
1 out of 2.
I've sent emails to clients that basically they'll say, here are my labs, and they'll say, here are my labs. How does everything look? And so, let's say the client has lost. This is a metabolic coaching client, has lost 35 pounds. Their HDL, good cholesterol, is up. Their triglycerides are way down. Their blood pressure is better. Their blood sugar is better. Just on and on. So they have all these improvements. And I've often said, hey, if I could invent a pill that would do all these things, I would be a billionaire. But a pill doesn't do all those things. And so instead, it's a behavior modification. You just change the way you eat.
Well, it was funny you say that, doctor, because at the end of this news story, as I read it, at the very end, they had another doctor on there, and commenting, and he said basically what you just said. He goes, "Look, you can achieve optimum blood pressure if you diet and lifestyle changes.
Yeah,
they can be done."
That's exactly right.
You don't have to use a medication. I mean, it's exercise. Of course, he went into didn't give specifics. They never do. He just says lifestyle, dietary changes plus moderate exercise will lower blood pressure levels. Bing.
I agree.
And I said, well, okay.
I agree, and it's 95% diet. 95%
well,
diet,
that's true, because how often have we talked
people.
about, and I'm living proof of this, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. You cannot work out a poor diet. In other words, you can't have just sitting around eating bonbons all day, although I didn't do that, but I was a high-carb freak. I couldn't sit around and just eat carbs 7 days a week and drink copious amounts of beer and say, oh, well, I went to the gym an hour today, I burned all that off. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
It never worked for me.
It's something like you have to run on the treadmill for like 3. I'm just ballparking here, but run on the treadmill for 3 hours to work off a slice of pizza, and so it doesn't work.
That's not good.
Talking about the drug companies fund the big studies. For example, the Lipitor study showing that the Lipitor statin reduced second heart attacks in people who had a first heart attack. People who had already had a heart attack, that it would reduce their chance of having a second heart attack. That Lipitor study, I mean, it was a 10-year study, and it had thousands of people, and that is very expensive. And so where is that money going to come from to do the studies? It's going to come from the drug companies because they have the money to do it. And you had mentioned that most of the news sites, they have a diet section, and in the follow-ups, one of one of the ladies, she was confused because she said, well, you're saying don't eat the sugars and the carbohydrates, but I've heard before don't eat the fat, and I've heard before don't eat too much protein, and I've heard before all this stuff. And so that's what happens on the diet news sites is one week it's the Whole30 is great, which is a high fat kind of low carb diet, and the next week it is eat a low fat vegan diet, and then the next week it's don't eat eggs, and then the next week it is eggs are healthy. And so the problem with the news sites is that you get to where the point to where the only thing you can eat is nothing. And if you eat a whole bunch of nothing, then you're going to be really healthy. Which in some ways you can do some fasting, some intermittent fasting.
Oh, that's what I'm doing right now.
And that will work out, but you can't eat nothing your whole life. You do have to eat something.
Yeah, and you know this, I'm not saying anything that's new. I haven't totally latched on with your program yet, but not a lot of people can do what I do, and that is go 3 days without food. I do a water fast 3 days a week. Do it every week. I'm losing about 3 to 4 pounds a week.
And so, we mentioned that, well, they want to lower the blood pressure limits. That would mean more people get on blood pressure medications. Well, some of the most common blood pressure medications, guess what they cause? Weight gain.
Yeah.
They cause weight gain. For example, the beta blockers, you mentioned beta blockers, like atenolol, metoprolol, propranolol, they're all very common. They're available as generics, and they all are known to cause weight gain. Okay? Another one that's a common blood pressure medication is hydrochlorothiazide. Hydrochlorothiazide does not necessarily cause weight gain, but it worsens insulin resistance. It increases fat in the liver, meaning it causes fatty liver, and it worsens blood sugars and can lead people who were kind of pre-diabetic to turn into overt diabetics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a common blood pressure medication, hydrochlorothiazide. Some other really common medications are the depression medications. Lots of people are on SSRIs like Prozac, Luvox, Paxil, and the generic names are fluoxetine or fluvoxamine, paroxetine, Zoloft, all those things. And the SSRIs, they cause weight gain.
Yeah.
And so, generally what happens is somebody walks into the doctor's office.
They cause a lot more problems than that, though. But yeah, the weight gain's one of them.
Yeah, and they can cause other problems too. But they walk into the doctor's office and they're overweight. And they have high blood pressure, they feel depressed, they don't feel good. And so then, well, you got to have high blood pressure, so we got to treat it with a medication. Well, that medication causes weight gain. Your depression, we treat it with a medication, it causes weight gain. So you get on, people will come to the metabolic coaching program on 5 different pills, all of which cause weight gain. But they never addressed what caused them to walk into the doctor's office on day 1 before they were on any meds was the diet. And so if they address the diet, then they can get off some of the blood pressure, antidepressant meds, even diabetes medications like glyburide, glipizide, glimepiride. They start with a GL in general. They cause weight gain. So people come in with high blood sugars, they get a blood sugar medication to lower their sugar, but it causes them to get even bigger, and it worsens their insulin resistance.
All of them except what, metformin?
Metformin, yes. I can't say all of them except for metformin because there are a lot of newer diabetes medications that cause you to either urinate out the sugar, and so that does not necessarily cause weight gain, although it can cause yeast infections and that sort of thing can be a problem for women. And some of the newer injectables like Victoza, Bidurion, and Byetta.
Are you Tresiba ready?
You've been watching TV? And so some of the newer medications don't cause the weight gain, and they don't actually cause the diabetes to get worse, and that's a good thing. That's a step in the right direction. But I think, Dr. Ben has said before that a medication should be kind of like a bridge. If you walk into the doctor's office and you have dangerously high blood sugar, you can use the medications to get your sugar down. In the meantime, you're changing the diet. You cut the carbohydrates and the bread and the pasta and the sugars out so that you can normalize your blood sugar and then get off the medication. That should be your goal. because what happens is people go in 1 year, they start on one medication, then they're on two, then they're on three. And so in my clinic, in my ophthalmology clinic, I'll see patients who are usually between the age of 65 to 85. And lots of those people are on a dozen medications.
Yeah.
A dozen or 15 medications, because they medicated the individual symptoms without ever getting to the root cause, which is the diet.
I have found that, and again, I'm a faster, which, you recommend if you can do it, but
I'm a little slower.
But a lot of people can't do it.
But
I know. But I have noticed that through my intermittent fasting, that once I go back to normal eating, and I try to watch the carbs, but if I don't and have, like this last Sunday, celebrated my birthday, so Sunday night, right?
Did you go to the ice cream shop?
We did. Well, we had ice cream, absolutely. I had pecan pie.
So on your birthday?
On my birthday, Sunday night, right? So I had that, and we had wonderful brisket, which there's nothing wrong with the brisket. I had it from Raider Red Meats. Excellent sliced brisket. But, I had dinner rolls with it with honey, and I had pecan pie, and I had some ice cream. And I got to tell you,
I bet you felt great.
I felt like crap. No, I felt terrible. As a matter of fact, yesterday morning, because the last piece of food I had was Sunday night around 7 o'clock, right? Well, yesterday morning, as I was getting ready for work, I'm over there just heaving in the sink. And my wife says, "You okay?" And I go, "I just don't feel good." She goes, "Well, you sure did, kind of, birthday party. You celebrated a lot." And I go, "Yeah, I did." And I got to tell you that once you start something like this, like your plan or doing something like I'm doing, if you overdo it on sugars and carbs, it will make you sick.
And I have had that happen to me on more than one.
I was throwing up. I was like, I can't wait to fast again. I feel terrible. I feel great now.
On more than one occasion, I've been kind of inadvertently, or I think it was kind of inadvertently poisoned on a holiday, like a Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, where there was a bunch of sugar in something that I did not anticipate it being in. And same thing. I mean, I would be laying down on the floor of the bathroom that night instead of sleeping and enjoying my holiday.
That's just incredible. I mean, what does that tell you, though, Doctor, when your body reacts that way? What's that saying?
In general, it says that your body used to be used to really high levels of sugar, high levels of sugar and high levels of carbohydrates. But as you're getting to where you're having a more normal blood sugar on a more normal regular basis, then your body's not used to really high sugars anymore, number one. And number two, a lot of people walk around and they kind of feel upset. They feel upset stomach, and they feel bloated, and they feel a little nauseous. They feel that way 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from their diet. But they don't really realize it until they cut the foods out, they cut the carbohydrates out, and then they get to feeling better. And they're like, "Oh, I'm not bloated. I don't have acid reflux. I don't feel sick and tired after I eat." And I used to feel that way all the time.
Well, as disturbing as this sounds, that I look forward to my 3-day fast more than I do when food comes back around.
And I've said that too.
Why is that?
I often feel better on fast days than I do on days when I eat.
I do. I feel so much better.
And
I feel so much better.
Some of that in Dr. Fung addresses in his presentations. If you guys want to learn more about intermittent fasting, just Google Jason Fung.
Yeah, he's been on the show before. We've interviewed him before. Yeah. He's good.
He has a whole video, thing where he goes through 7 hours of videos. But you can learn all about fasting and low carb and why it works. But he talks about the hormones, and you release certain hormones that, like human growth. When you're fasting, you release more human growth hormone. You release more noradrenaline. And so those things, they're builders. They make you feel better. When you're not fasting, you don't release as much. And when you're eating tons of sugar, then you're nauseated.
Yeah, I don't feel good at all. I don't feel good at all. So here's the point. So I think what's going to happen to me, and of course the jury's still out, But I think what's going to happen is that once I go into my regular days of eating, which is generally on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days, 3 days on, 3 days, 4 days eat. I'm going to be on those 4 days. I'm going to be very careful. I'm not going to load up on a bunch of
No.
sugars and carbs because I'll tell you what, it's not making me feel good. I feel great now, but if I load up on carbs and sugar, too much of it, it totally jacks me up. Makes me feel like crap.
I've had clients who they said, well, we've been doing low carb. We're so proud of ourselves. We're doing great, and we went out of town. And when we went out of town, we decided since we were going on vacation, we stopped at Sonic and got a burger, and we ate the bun because we were on vacation. And by the time we got to post, we both felt sick, and we had to stop at the bathroom and post. And so that's common. Also, people, once they get to feeling better, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of joint pain is associated with sugar in the diet, sugar and gluten in the diet. And so I had a chiropractor who he said, I thought I had arthritis in my hands from doing 15, 20 years of adjustments. But as long as I avoid the wheat and the sugar, my arthritis is gone. But if I cheat and eat either the wheat and sugar, my hands hurt for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people who are sensitive like that, and they'll get joint pain. And the joint pain lasts for a couple of days, and that's the inflammation that's going on in your body from eating wheat and sugar, gluten and sugar, basically.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, as you said before, I'm doing it the hard way. I mean, what I'm doing, most people wouldn't do. Your plan is a lot easier than what I'm doing, quite honestly. But I just had this overwhelming sense of, well, gee whiz, Dr. Anderson, I don't want to give up my ice cream, and I don't want to give up my pizza every once in a while. And so I'm going to do it this way and still lose weight.
And
that's all true. But
this week,
as I'm finding out, it's making me sick.
Cream. Yeah.
It's making me sick, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel good if I overdo it in high complex carbohydrates or sugars. I tell you, it just makes me absolutely nauseated.
Since we mentioned a little bit about Dr. Fung, there is so much information to be gained from watching Dr. Fung's videos about why a low carbohydrate diet works, and some tips and tricks and things. And one of them is that losing weight is about lowering your insulin levels. And it's not about your blood sugar per se. It's about lowering insulin levels, because insulin's the fat storage hormone. You want to get insulin down so you lose fat. And we had this discussion in follow-up last week about there's one lady in the follow-up group who she avoids dairy completely. No cheese, no milk, no dairy products at all. Eggs are not dairy. She has eggs. But she does no dairy at all. And so someone who's kind of new to the group said, oh my gosh, we have to give up dairy. And the answer to that is no. For most people, they don't have to give up dairy, but there are some people who just won't lose weight while they're eating dairy, and the reason is this. Insulin secretion from whey protein. Whey protein is like bodybuilder protein.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I used to take it all the time when I was working out. I don't anymore.
Whey protein causes 3 times as much insulin secretion as white bread.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Milk causes about 2.5 times as much insulin secretion as white bread. So that's why you shouldn't do really whey protein powders. If you do them in small amounts. Whey protein's a builder, so if you're a bodybuilder and you want to build, then you do need to secrete a lot of insulin. But if you're trying to lose weight and lose fat, you don't.
Great point. You need to say that again. That's an understatement.
For whey protein. Whey protein is a builder. It causes you to secrete a lot of insulin. And so if you're trying to bulk up and get bigger and add muscle, then you need insulin to help you bulk up. But if you're trying to lose weight and lose fat, you don't need insulin. You should probably avoid whey protein. And I'll tell you that when I started doing low carb in the beginning, I would make whey protein smoothies sometimes. I don't do that anymore. We have the same can of whey protein in our house that we've had for probably 2 years. We need to throw it out at this point.
Yeah, me too. I stopped taking whey protein about a year ago. Haven't looked back. I haven't missed it at all.
Now, cheese cheese does cause you to secrete a little more insulin than white bread does. Now, the reason why
Cheese does?
cheese does.
Well, that's something that was a mind blower. I didn't know
The
that.
reason white bread is worse than cheese is because white bread, it doesn't just cause you to secrete insulin, but it raises your blood sugar, and it contains gluten, so it's inflammatory. And, iron fortification. You've been talking with Morley Robbins about that. All the iron that's in the iron fortified grains. So bread is worse for you than cheese for all those reasons. But cheese, dairy protein can cause insulin secretion. So you don't have to cut cheese out to do a low carbohydrate diet. But if you get stuck, take a week off of dairy.
Right.
Take a week off of cheese and see if you can get yourself unstuck. See if that's what's holding you back.
And a lot of times it is the dairy side of things. You've also had patients that have been stuck just because they eat a handful of almonds or walnuts or pecans thinking, hey, it's good omega-3s, which that's all true, but if you're doing that and then you plateau and you're thinking, man, what am I doing? You've actually had some that have knocked out the nuts and then they go back to weight loss again.
That's exactly
Nuts. Nuts of all things.
right. And those are the little tricks. And so anyway, the lady who was kind of new to the group, she was like, oh man, do we have to cut out dairy? And she was wide-eyed and she was panicking. Not panicking in a bad way, but she didn't want to cut out the dairy. And so I asked the group, there was about a dozen of us there, and I said, how many of you in the group have cut out dairy? And it was the one lady. So you kind of 1 in 10 or 1 in 12. And I would say that's probably accurate. I would say that doing a very low carbohydrate diet, which I define as less than 20 net carbs a day, will cause weight loss for 90% of people. But there's 10%, and 10% might be held back by something. Is it the dairy? Is it the nuts? Is it the fish? Farm-raised fish? Something like that.
It's pretty amazing.
Another thing that I incorporate, I do every night, is I take 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And I shoot it, and then I chase it with some water so that the vinegar is only in contact with my throat or anything for about 1 second. That's it. But I take 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar every night. And this is from Funk Slides, because there are several studies that show that taking vinegar at night lowers blood sugars, and it helps to decrease the insulin response. So apple cider vinegar, people say it cures everything. I don't know that it cures everything, but it has been shown in studies to decrease insulin response and help with morning blood sugars. And so you want to keep your insulin down to lose weight, apple cider vinegar will help you along the way.
That's great. I don't know if I want to take a jigger of that while I'm in a fasting state, but I do take my adrenals stuff cocktail in a fasting state, and that seems to really help out.
What do you put for your vitamin C in your adrenal cocktail?
Well, I don't use the ascorbic acid. I mean, of course, I learned through Morley and Dr. Edwards on the Monday show, don't use that kind of vitamin C. It's more of a bioflavonoid type vitamin C, which is bioavailable, which is good. And then I use a Himalayan salt and a little bit of coconut water. Yeah. Now, the coconut water's got a little fat in it, so I was concerned about this, and I remember asking Dr. Fung, who wrote the book on intermittent fasting.
Literally wrote the book?
He literally did write the book. I mean, this guy knows what he's talking about. I said, hey, is that going to bust my fast? He said, no. He said, people can do some bone broths and things like that. He goes, but some strict fasters will say,
some people,
they won't touch it, just water
Yeah.
only. I mean, they'll do a water 3-day, and I've done 3-day, but I just feel better when I take the adrenal cocktail solution once. I only do it once a day.
Yeah, taking salt.
You take in salt. You take that's the minerals and the magnesium and the vitamin C and the coconut. So I get all of those good healthy things on a stomach that's readily digestible. Now, you don't want to take vitamins or any pills or any of that kind of stuff while you're fasting, because that can potentially, you can have upset stomach with that kind of stuff. But again, it's to each his own. I mean, everybody's their own chemistry set and what they can do and what they can't do. So general guidelines are to kind of experiment, play around with it, see what you could do. I mean, I might be able to take the apple cider vinegar maybe and get away with it and it not bother me. But on the other hand, I might do it once and be like, oh man, that did not go well.
Yeah, one of the great things about taking apple cider vinegar at night before you go to bed is that usually for me, I still have food in my stomach, by the time I go to bed. We eat pretty early, but it's a couple hours, 3 hours later. And I'll take the apple cider vinegar. It helps me digest my food. You need the acid to digest your food. So, and it's helping with insulin, and it's helping with blood sugars. So it's all good things.
Yeah, it is.
There's a cocktail that's similar. It's on the Facebook page, Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook, and it's basically, they call it a weight loss cocktail, but it's a little lemon juice with apple cider vinegar with cinnamon, and all of those things can help with your insulin response. On the original recipe, it uses honey. I don't recommend you use honey because honey is a sugar, and just like in regular table sugar, well, any sugar contains not any sugar, but let's say table sugar or honey or maple syrup or even high fructose corn syrup. They all contain glucose and fructose. The glucose raises your blood sugar.
Fruits, too.
Yes, fruits too, and that's why you don't eat a lot of fruits. So the glucose raises your blood sugar, and the fructose, your body processes it and turns it into triglyceride, which is a fat storage molecule. So the only thing your body can really do efficiently and effectively with sugars is store fat. So sugars are uniquely fattening, even if it's all natural organic sugar like honey or maple syrup. So, but anyway, so for that recipe, it's lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, water, cinnamon, and use a sweetener. You can use some liquid stevia or something if you want a sweetener in there. And it's a kind of popular weight loss cocktail that goes around on the internet and on Facebook, and those are all good things. And I've had clients who needed to control their blood sugar in the morning, and taking that cocktail at night got their morning blood sugars normal.
That's good. Yeah.
So, and that if you think about it, you get whole food vitamin C from the lemon, and then all the other things help control your blood sugar. So it's a good thing. So
no, it is.
There are other cocktails out there, even other than the adrenal cocktail.
Yeah, that's true. I like the adrenal cocktail, though. I just started that a couple of weeks ago, and I feel amazing on it. I mean, I really do feel really good. I don't take it during my non-fast days. I guess I should. My wife, who's a health coach, hammers me and says, "Oh, you need to take this when you're eating too, at least once a day."
So,
but I don't.
We talked about the Whole30 and the things to eat was kind of a low-carb, high-fat diet, and the other section is what to avoid on the Whole30. And on the Whole30, number 1, avoid added sugar, real or artificial.
Mm-hmm.
Don't consume alcohol.
Which is ridiculous because on your plan you can have a little booze. Right.
Count the carbs. Count the carbs in your booze. So there are a couple of things about booze. Number 1, if you're going to consume alcohol, count the carbs in your alcohol, and so you're still trying to get less than 20 net carbs a day. Dr. Bernstein, who treats lots of diabetics with a low carbohydrate diet, he'll let them have a drink a day, 1 alcoholic drink a day. But if they have 2, it starts to mess up their sugar. Mm-hmm. And they can have episodes of low blood sugar, which can then cause a rebound high blood sugar, and so it kind of messes things up. So like 1 drink a day. The third rule is don't eat any grains, don't eat any beans or legumes, don't eat dairy, and we just talked about dairy insulin response. Don't consume, I never know how to say this, carrageenan, MSG, or sulfites. Carrageenan, MSG, and sulfites, they're food additives. Don't consume any junk foods or baked goods, even if it has ingredients that are supposed to be good. And don't step on the scale for 30 days. So those are the rules. After 30 days, you can step on the scale. And in general, weighing yourself can be a very stressful thing for some people because your weight can go up or down 2 pounds in a day, from one morning to the next. So if you're going to weigh yourself, here are my general tips. In general, if you're losing weight, you're doing a low-carb diet, just weigh yourself once a week. Pick one day, weigh yourself once a week, and as long as you're making progress like that, just keep it up. That way you don't have to deal with the up and down roller coaster. But if you're stuck, if you're not losing weight like you want to, then I do suggest you weigh yourself every single day and write it down. Weighing yourself every single day, and just the act of writing it down, your daily weight, is like an accountability partner. It helps you. You're accountable to write that number down on the paper, and you don't really want to write it down if it's up. And so what you can do is, if you're sitting there looking at the bag of M&Ms, and you're thinking, oh, I got to write my weight down tomorrow, I'm going to pass on the bag of M&Ms. And so it works as an accountability partner, just the act of writing it down. So write it down daily, except the only thing you care about, whether or not you lose weight or gain weight, is the weekly average. So take those 7 days and average them out, and so that's your weekly weight. And then if you want to know if you gained weight or lost weight next week, you just write down all 7 days. The daily numbers don't matter. Just write down your weekly average and then compare one weekly average to the next. That way it gets rid of all the kind of fluctuations. One of the other benefits of writing down a daily weight is that if you're stuck and you write down your weight and you see that you've gained 2 or more pounds, if you've gained 2 or more pounds, then think about what you ate in the last 48 hours. Because you ate something in the last 48 hours that you're reactive to, or that is inflammatory for you. It causes you to bloat up, and it inflames your digestive tract. And you may find that, when I eat cheese, I weigh 2 pounds heavier the next day. So maybe I need to cut out cheese. And I had one client who, when she ate fish, if it was not like Alaskan wild-caught salmon, if she ate farm-raised fish, she gained weight, 2 pounds or more the next day, and blew up like a balloon. And so some people, it might be deli meats. The most reactive foods are things like fish, and farm-raised fish and deli meats. So maybe it's not the ham that you eat, but maybe it's some sort of pastrami or salami or pepperoni that you bought that causes you to blow up. And so if you write down your daily weights, you can use that, number one, to take your weekly average and track your weight loss. And number two, on the days where you see you have a big weight gain, look back and see what you ate in the last 2 days, because you ate something that is not healthy for you personally, something that you should consider cutting out of your diet that's reactive or inflammatory for you.
Good points. Well, if you'd like to learn more, of course, you can check out our website, metaboliccoaching.net. And again, like us on Facebook, Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook, and we'd be happy to work with you and get you all the tips and strategies so that you can be successful in your overall health situation. So, and again, nobody can do this but you. I mean, you can hear about it all day long, but I know lots of people around here that have listened to these ideas and said, well, I think I'll just start doing that on my own, and they've lost lots of weight.
Yeah.
It's
that
again,
simple.
It's not really rocket science. It's just, but you have to have the knowledge on what's going on and how it works to be successful at it. And if you're stumbling along and you're not just doing it okay on your own, we have that support groups and support things that can help you achieve that goal. And over time, you'll find out, like I'm starting to find out, that you actually look at food differently. You appreciate it differently. You actually think about it a little bit more than just open pie hole and shove in whatever. You start to think, I don't know about that. So I think that for me, that's one of the biggest lessons learned here, is that you learn to appreciate the food that you are consuming and wonder and saying is not subconsciously. We're talking consciously, where you look at something. Do I really need that pecan pie? Well, it's my birthday. I'll go ahead and have it. I know it's obviously going to jack my insulin to the moon, but I'm going to go ahead. It's my birthday. I'm going to celebrate, and that's okay until the next morning when I'm throwing up all over the place.
What's going to happen next time is you're going to look and you're going to say, "Do I want?"
Nah, I really don't.
You're going to say, "Do I want to have that pecan pie?" Oh, last time I had pecan pie and ice cream and rolls, I ended up nauseated and throwing up.
Well, see, what's weird,
I think I'll pass.
Well, and I got to tell you, at least in my situation, is that when I'm back on regular eating, I can have a certain amount of carbs. I mean, and it doesn't bother me at all. Like on Saturday, I was out at the food truck deal, veterans deal. I was asked to come out, so I did for Veterans Day.
A celebrity like you.
Yeah, it was great. I'll go out there and hang out with all the veterans, and the food trucks were at Sutherland's, and so in the parking lot. So I'm walking around doing my thing, and I'm eating all the different types of great culinary delights that these food trucks bring. And my favorites, of course, I love Mexican food. So I'm eating a lot of street tacos and a lot of burrito type stuff. But you know what? On Saturday, I didn't feel bad, and I didn't feel bad on Sunday. But when Sunday rolled around, and then we celebrate my birthday,
The
then
sugars.
I go ahead and jack more on top of what I had on Saturday. And it's the cumulative effect. I think that cumulative effect of eating a lot of bread and a lot of corn tortillas and on and on and on, which I know are not very good.
You know what I'm going to do, Wade?
And then come Sunday night, I really reached for the stars.
I'm going to make it.
And I got sick. I didn't feel good, doctor.
I'm going to make a slide, and it's going to have a picture of Wade Wilkes.
Yes.
And it's going to be like, this is don't be a Wade Wilkes. And it's gonna be like, so he goes he eats all the street tacos, and then he eats the street tacos, and then he has the pecan pie and ice cream, and then he tries to exercise it off, and it doesn't work.
I'll tell you another thing that's happened. Let me throw this out there at you too. I like to drink beer on the weekends. That's no big surprise, but I'll tell you what, I don't like drinking a lot of it now. Too much of it, and I feel sick. Again. If I have more than, say, 3 or 4 or 5 drinks in a sitting, over a course of a couple hours, I'm feeling nauseated. I used to not feel like that. So, again, that's, you're drinking an alcohol, jacking your insulin up, and it's kind of weird how all this stuff kind of goes hand in glove, because that's good for people who say, well, I really like to drink beer. I know guys that'll sit around and drink a 12-pack during, all day long watching NFL games. And it doesn't faze them. They're not drunk. They just drink 12-pack of beer, over a course of 4 or 5 hours, whatever. And I used to be able to do that, but I can't do that now. I would feel like crap if I did that.
I used to sit around and drink Diet Cokes all day long, every day. Just maybe I'd drink 6 Diet Cokes in a day.
Oh my goodness!
And
full of aspartame and all that good stuff.
Aspartame and caffeine and whatever, and phosphoric acid, which is not good for your bones or your weight, and
That's
on and
wonderful
on.
stuff.
But but now I find the problem is, if there's something I would struggle with, I struggle with Diet Cokes, because I like a Diet Coke. I love a Diet Coke. But if I drink one, I can just sit there and just feel myself.
Oh yeah,
get kind of shaky and feel my heart start to beat fast. And I recently looked up 2 studies, and there's one talks about the artificial sweetener in Diet Coke linked to dementia and also depression. Linked to dementia, depression, and stroke. So, all not good things.
Not good things. But I find, doctor, it's fascinating that your body tells you these things. But prior to that, when you're just kind of going along, the American Standard Diet, you don't feel these things.
That's right.
But once you correct your chemistry, once you correct what really your body craves, and then you reintroduce some bad food, high sugar, high complex carbohydrate, or a lot of it, or too much alcohol, you're been over the sink like I am. Oh, I want to feel good. What's going on? My wife's laughing, going, your body's adjusting. And then when you overdo it, she goes, you didn't see me having pecan pie. You said to me that if I was going to get you a cake, that you'd like pecan pie. And I said, I know. And you had 2 slices of that stuff. And that's so outrageously and sugar.
You can do cheesecake.
Yeah,
cheesecake
and I didn't.
Is a good one without
I
the
just
sugar.
thought.
Just use a xylitol, erythritol, stevia.
But see, here's the problem. I'm losing weight, right, on the 72-hour fast weekly. I'm losing weight, 3 pounds a week. That's documented. I'm doing it. That's fine. So I think, well, then I can just eat what I want on the next 4 days. No, I can't. Without feeling bad. I start to feel bad, and that's the point. And that's something I didn't take into consideration. I didn't take that into consideration when I started my fasting. It just, hey, you're doing great for 3 days, but if you eat like a pig for 4 days, at the end of that 4th day, you're going to be sick.
You're going to feel bad.
And that's what happened this weekend, so first time. So lessons learned. You got to still be careful out there.
All right, Wayne.
All right, Dr. Anderson, good deal. Thank you so much. Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook. Check us out, metaboliccoaching.net, or give us a call, 448-0322. Stick around now. Unconfused coming up next. Vitamins.